So we're going to talk about two things here. One is a specific aspect of Tesla's earnings call as far as Robotaxi is concerned. And then we also want to talk about the paper about self-play and autonomous driving. The reason these two things are related is because the main thesis on Tesla is its ability to build a robotics platform on wheels and also on legs. And we're going to start with autonomous driving and talk about this now because that's the next phase. And then Optimus will be maybe a bit later. So, and the paper that we're going to talk about is about, it's a paper, links in the show notes, details, authors, all of that. The paper is one of the most interesting aspects of AI, in our opinion, which is the ability to create a simulated environment where the agents can learn through self-play. In other words, you don't put any kind of constraints other than some basic rules on the agent and then let the agent play in many billions of iterations throughout the simulated environment. And then you get to a point where you get to superhuman intelligence. Having said that, I also want to mention one thing that came out of one of the podcasts I listened to today. Again, links in the show notes. And the person there mentioned something very interesting. He said that he believes that autonomy will be commoditized and it's going to come out of left field. So he said, I believe that something like ChatGPT will emerge in maybe a year or two, some sort of AGI where you just put an iPhone in a car and connect it to some actuator suite and the thing drives itself because it has this semantic intelligence, a bit like imagine like a real world ChatGPT type moment. We're not there yet with Tesla. I'm going to explain why. I'm also going to explain why I think this is actually very plausible. And I'm also going to explain why I think Tesla is still absolutely the place to be. This is not even a podcast. It's April 25th, 2025. This is Krim Delco. For the day, we're up 7%. The market is up 70 basis points. For the year, we're down. For the year, we are down 32%. The market is down 6%. We're underperforming by 26%. So let's start with this week's rally in Tesla stock, driven by the earnings, and then sort of extended into news and positive news. The news are mainly that we have a framework for autonomous driving now being announced by the US. We also have some positive news out of Europe. Let me just summarize the news here in autonomy is coming and it's coming fast because Tesla is moving forward. Now, before we go into the details of what that actually means for the stock, let's talk about what we mean with autonomy. What we mean with autonomy is a fully unsupervised self-driving car that can pick up people and drop them in other places. This is, something that we believe will happen. It's already happening right now. We have tests, we have videos actually available that test these things. So this is happening, but we believe that, of course, the scale from test to scale and then to multi-scale is that's much harder to do. So it's not solved in that sense, and therefore we believe that autonomy as solved when it comes to self-driving means that you have an at-scale taxi service in areas like Austin, Miami, New York, Los Angeles, where you have an app, you pick up, the car comes, picks you up, the wait times are low, the pricing is low, and the cars are decently clean and the maintenance is all given and all of those things. So that's what we mean. And we believe that the tech is there. The tech is there because Tesla has been able to develop a full self-driving suite that has this ability right now. There is hopefully another version coming, a 14 version that is even better than the 13. We're actually, myself, I'm driving on a 12 version because I have hardware 3, and that's already amazing. But I would say the 12 version definitely has some glitches, small things that are still deal breakers when it comes to Robotaxi. For example, it doesn't know how to park other than backwards parking So it's got to have to be able to go into tight spaces and things like that. It can do toll booths and stuff, but it's not 100%. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So those kinds of things are, that's on the 12th version. I believe the 13th version has solved that, and the 14th version will be hopefully much better. I think the progress in Tesla Full Self-Driving is a function of compute time. So you have the amount of compute times the time you have available for that compute. And therefore it's driven by Moore's law and Jensen's law, and we believe that that is maybe a few months away from solved as we just defined it before. Now let's talk a little bit about what this comment on the podcast that I mentioned meant. How do we think about the Tesla business in general? We have, I'll just give a few numbers in terms of valuation just to give a scale. So we believe that the Tesla car business on its own is worth about $80 a share. We believe that the energy business is about $70, about $150 car and energy. You can add another $70 a share just for the FSD, as far as, let's say you have unsupervised FSD that you can subscribe to as a buyer of a Tesla. So you can have the car park itself. You can, your wife's going to be picked up from the airport by your car, or you drive to the airport and then send the car back, those sort of things. We believe there is value in that. So we have about $220 a share with no Robotaxi and no Optimus. Robotaxi, we believe, can be about $300 a share. Optimus, we're not giving any value right now. Here's why. Why $300 a share? Well, the way we think about the Robotaxi business is really, it's driven by cost per mile. Cost per mile is the key, and that's actually confirmed by that person. I don't know his name, but it's in the show notes. I apologize for not mentioning names. I don't want to take credit for these things. I just don't want to waste my podcast with names and details. It's all in the show notes. So this person said that it's all about cost per mile. We completely agree with that. What do we mean with cost per mile? Well, you're offering a utility service, which is transportation. Transportation is something that inherently people pay per something. So it's not something you buy like a Louis Vuitton handbag or whatever, like food, restaurant, that kind of thing. Like, it's primarily driven by, okay, how much am I paying to get from A to B? Whether it's flying, whether it's trains, whether it's buses. Now, yes, people care about comfort, people care about design, all these things matter. And we're certainly very happy with Tesla as far as that's concerned anyway. So we're not concerned about, entertainment value of the transportation. So maybe people prefer to fly with Emirates Airline versus United Airline because it's a little bit more comfortable. But fundamentally, if the ticket of Emirates is double the price of a United Airlines flight, you're still going to go with United Airlines. So what we mean with that is that cost per mile is the key, and Tesla will have a cost advantage because, number one, they don't have a driver, and number two, their cars depreciate much, much, much less than other cars. What do we mean with that? Well, cost per mile can be driven down by two things. One is, or three things actually. Sorry. One is the cost of the car itself, then the operating cost, and the miles driven. So the cost is cost of the car and operating cost divided by the miles driven. If you have, if a car costs $100,000 and it only drives 150,000 miles, or let's say 100,000 miles, that's $1 per mile or 80 cents per mile on depreciation. You have maybe 30 cents of maintenance and energy and things like that. So about $1 per mile. That's without the driver. Tesla costs, let's say, $50,000 and drives 500,000 miles. So that's 10 cents per mile. And you add 30 cents maintenance and all that. That's 40 cents per mile. So they can price this thing at 60 cents and make a 50% gross margin on 60 cents versus $1. That's sort of what we're living here, and that is let's say half the price. So for half the price, and by the way, this is without the driver. So right now we're entering the market where everybody has a driver, where the cost per mile is really $3 per mile because there's a driver that needs to be paid. So we're talking 5-6x cheaper, and therefore clearly a category killer, dominator, any which way you want to look at this. Now, we actually do agree that there's a good chance that autonomy will be commoditized because it's going to have, like, people are working on this, real world AI. There's a lot of interesting work on this. We believe that the value of Tesla, eventually, when everything is said and done, will be in the manufacturing capability, in the scaling capability, or maybe to simplify it, right now, Ashock is the most important man in the company because he's driving the AI effort. But I believe that long-term, Lars will be the real value driver because it's Lars and Franz and this teams, because they will drive manufacturing design, scalability, material design choices, like those kinds of things will eventually make the difference. The 4680, the chips, like the ability to make a car that can drive 500,000 miles, that can be maintained at low cost, and that doesn't break and has a long range and all of these things, that's where the actual win will be. If you take somebody like Google right now, they have good AI. Probably they can be as good as Tesla. There's no reason, or Huawei, or you name it. Like, there is no reason why they can't throw engineers at this problem. Like, I'm going to ICRA in 3 weeks to Atlanta. Half the conference is about robotics and self-driving. I mean, the whole conference is about robotics, but about autonomous robots and all of that stuff, and particularly autonomous driving. So there's no reason why there shouldn't be a breakthrough out of left field, as the person on the podcast said. But what Google can't do is make a car that drives 500,000 miles for $50,000. They can't do that. That's not what they do. And outsourcing it to Hyundai, that's not what Hyundai does either. Because Hyundai doesn't make cars that last 500,000 miles. They make the cars that maybe can drive 200,000-300,000 miles, but they need to be maintained. That's the business model of the OEMs. So in other words, the actual value of Tesla, this $300 a share, is going to be driven by the fact that they can scale to millions of cars at lower costs. I'm going to keep elaborating on this, but I think this is a very important point. And the purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense of what it feels like to run a hedge fund. And I think this is one of those episodes you really want to pay attention to because you see, there's so much noise and so much talk about Tesla as a company, as a brand, Elon Musk. But when the whole skeleton is reduced to what really, really matters, we're talking about a manufacturing company that can build a product that has incredibly complex technology that can provide a service at much, much lower cost at scale. That's where wealth is created, and that's what Tesla is. So I want to finish this episode with the paper discussion. So self-play, it's one of the key ingredients, we believe, in the future of robotics. Right now, and I'm going to tie it to Tesla, actually. This is very important. So the paper basically does the following. They're creating a model where you have agents like cars that drive in a simulated traffic scenario. And all the agents in that particular scenario, they have a couple of basic rules. No collision, get from A to B, keep the lane, a couple of those types of things. And then they let the whole thing just play itself. So it's very akin to AlphaGo Zero and that type of experiment that DeepMind did quite a while ago when AlphaGo Zero beat the best Go player. So this is the same idea. And we believe this is the holy grail of robotics. Now, of course, it requires a very good simulation engine. And the paper talks about this, and they're beating some benchmarks and all of that. And it's all good and said and done. But what's really important, in our opinion, is the discussion in the paper where they talk about the fact that, look, you have two problems with simulated driving. One is you need to understand what is actually good driving. That is not so obvious. And you can get to this from two perspectives. One is you can have it self-play and maybe come up with good driving endogenously, or you can maybe combine it with imitation learning. In other words, you can look how people drive, and that's what Tesla is doing with their FSD, and learn from billions of miles of real miles driven by people, and then just implement that. So those are the two approaches. So that's one thing. The other thing you need to understand is that in a self-play scenario, the agent is acting with other agents, and there is a certain way people act in the real world. And it's not so obvious that in a self-play scenario that system will converge to the real world. It might be a better system. Like in AlphaGo Zero, the player was better. There was move 37. They did things that humans would never do. But in a traffic scenario, you kind of have to abide to the rules of the traffic. And what I mean with the rules is not just the actual laws of the traffic. It's also just, like, you let an old lady pass before, if she's in the middle of the road, like all that kind of stuff. Trolley problem issues, like there are certain things that we do human. My point is, like, you want to be, when you simulate an environment in self-play, I think you still want to bring in actual real world data from real traffic scenarios, so the agent can adapt to the real world, to the real traffic world. That's what I mean. So you want to have a combination, which has been discussed also in a paper that is going to be also attached here, that came about 3 years ago at ICRA, where they used diffusion models to enhance real-world traffic data, to have more scenarios which are embedded in the real world, but then generated with diffusion models. So you have, let's say, a car which drives, a real car, and then you take that video and then you create many scenarios with the car moving left and right and maybe stopping and things like that. Lastly, also, I want to mention a recent paper I discussed out of Berkeley. I actually didn't discuss it, but I read it. Sorry, I'm discussing it here. And they spoke about reinforcement learning. And the conclusion of that paper was that probably reinforcement learning with behavioral cloning is a better way for real-world AI, because it's real-world AI. So we need some sort of behavioral cloning or some sort of priors for any kind of reinforcement learning agent to learn how to behave in a world that is real. And the real thing is the behavioral cloning thing. So to summarize this section, the second part of this episode, I think the scientific community is converging towards reinforcement learning with behavioral cloning, which is probably not exactly what Tesla is doing about. Tesla is, maybe 80% behavioral cloning, 20% reinforcement learning, versus maybe where the scientific community lives is more the other way around, like 80% reinforcement learning, 20% behavioral cloning. But the point is, these two combined, in our opinion, are a good solution for real-world AI. Thank you.